reveille.
Look at us now, Tipton.
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
To us, doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Oh, yeah, let's go. It's Friday. You're unemployed and your favorite show is back on October 17th of the 25s. This is Morning Kombat. It's UFC Vancouver weekend. Let's get ready. My name is Brian Campbell, live and direct from the Hartford, Connecticut suburbs. And next to me, of course, is the reason you tuned in, Washington, D.C.'s finest, a native of India. Yeah, that's a true fact. Hey, it's Luke F. Thomas, to be accurate, government accurate. LT, how are you? A, and B, it's fall. There's pumpkin coffee. There's MMA this weekend. You fired up? You ready?
I got to tell you, we're at the stage of morning e-bike rides with the Tukester to school. Little nippy, little chilly out there. I had to wear gloves for the first time today. I was like, yo, it's cold.
When you say little nippy, you don't just mean the moms in the dairy section at the grocery store, right?
No, I do not mean what's her face in Kingpin turning around with the Bud Lights from the freezer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember that one too. Yes.
No, it's a little more than that. But I mean, listen, I was having a conversation with Long Island Luke. My sleep meds are not working. They work, but they don't work ideally. So I'm waking up at weird times. That's kind of messing with my schedule a little bit. But I'm not complaining. Honest to God, I feel fine. I really do. I'm good to go. And to that point, this little Canadian card's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I'm pretty excited for that.
I thought it was going to lose a lot of heart when Fluffy Hernandez pulled out, and that's still, not ideal, but it looks like this is a strong fight night card. I'm ready to go. I am fired up. Thank you for joining us. Please, you can like this show on YouTube. You can subscribe. Shout out to everybody watching on the DraftKings Network. Follow us on social media. Support our extended YouTube channel, Substacks, and LGBTQ plus political channels. Thank you very much. If you want to support us even further, folks, you can get a little bit of this merch we got going on at morningkombat.shop. And yeah, you better believe the October exclusives are hot. They're itching to get off the shelf and get on your body. So why don't you get Super Wash Dads while you can? Or maybe even the Frank and Luke and Donkula Halloween collaboration, Average Joe Art inspired and executed, of course. Get the signed poster, mix and match your colors, check out our evergreen items. Head on over to morningkombat.shop. And this episode of Morning Kombat presented to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Yes. All right. And we have a third member of our team, of course, a producer, director, bong enthusiast, son of an Aussie. Yes. Aussie down under. How about that bag, right? 6'7". All right. Here we go. Hey, Luke Nocita of the main card. Right?
What's up, boys? Got a new prop quiz dropping after this. LT on the episode, taking on Danny Segura. Super competitive episode. Comes down to the last question.
Let me just explain, BC. I cannot do this show any longer. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know the answers.
Yeah, what are you
basically
you did well. You did well.
No, I did quite poorly. More to the point.
Wow, BC, spoiler alert, folks. All right.
Well, no. You should still watch because I'll put it this way. The way the winner wins is actually very fun. So I'll put it that way. But BC, literally, I think there were maybe 3 questions during the course of that where I didn't even know 2 of the people were UFC fighters. And in one of the cases, it was like I had to name 2 of Ode Osborne's fights. I can't do that. Okay. I don't know the answers to these things. I don't know how you feel about this.
I just want to say, BC, the category was training with Osborne. And Luke didn't know.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. This is why listen, Prop Quiz is a great show, but podcast brain for me, BC, has ruined me. It's ruined me because everyone's going to feel it differently. But because I did like my own show before I even did MK, where I'm only focusing on main and co-main fights so often that everything else just becomes background noise. And a big part of that background noise is now like central to doing well on Prop Quiz, and I can't.
I'm with you on that. I'm not a deep undercard guy, or at least previously I will be now in the Paramount UFC era, but that is Long Island Luke's specialty, and there's a lot of Stephanie Edgar answers, it seems, or Eggers, or I see a lot of those names repeating on there where I'm like, damn. But hey, Aiemann is amazing at this. I hope I don't have to defend
How about
myself.
this? Long Island Luke, correct me if I'm wrong. The winner ends up getting second most points total ever?
Correct.
So they didn't beat Aiemann, but a noteworthy performance just the same.
Well, whoever wins, it's a big win for Colombia, I'm sure. LT versus
Indeed.
Gurha. Thank you very much. Hello to Long Island Luke and his main card minute as well. LT, I'll be also Saturday night, tomorrow night in Brooklyn on the call for Danny Garcia's
that's tomorrow night.
Farewell. Yes, thank you very much. You can check that out on the millions.co pay-per-view stream. It'll be myself.
Is Barclays Center?
It is Barclays Center, the final fight of Danny Swift Garcia's career. He'll be in the main event. He's the promoter. Me, Chris Algieri, Teofimo Lopez, Andre Berto, and Akin Reyes of Akin Barak fame going to be on the call. So check that out if you're into it. There should be some good fun on that card.
How much are they charging?
I believe it's $39.99.
You know, I wish the show luck. I'll put it that way. I've had good memories at Barclays Center, you know?
Very good memories.
With the exception of Jermaine Durandamy versus Holly Holm, which was not a great memory. That was a bad memory.
We try to shove that memory back where it belongs, in the bin. Yeah, there you go. All right. So that's about all. Unless, Luke, you have any updates of e-biking fame?
No, the thing is, I've got kids' parties like I do every weekend I have to go to. But DC is going to have, as many places will, this big-ass protest. And I'm just wondering how much it's going to fuck up my ability to get my kid to parties on time.
Is this a No Kings protest, or is this more like Jan 6 related?
You know what? It's always a toss up when the Donald is here. So I don't know. We're gonna see how that goes, but I think the city's gonna be a fucking nightmare. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, it tends to be, but don't worry, I still come in and clean that shit up. Right?
Yeah, you can. They're still waiting for you to return to the local Starbucks where you can regale them with your "Hey, everybody, have you had airplane food?"
All righty then. Anything else we have to plug? Nah.
No, let's do it.
All right, let's hit the show. Let's hit it with topic number 1. Hey, it's UFC Fight Night Vancouver time this Saturday. And even though Anthony Fluffy Hernandez was forced to pull out with an undisclosed injury, I want to say maybe robbing Reinier de Ridder of what this fight is supposed to be, an audition for a middleweight championship shot. But RDR still in contention here, despite Nasruddin Imavov's impressive victory over Caio Borralho. And of course, RDR will welcome the replacement of Brendan Allen. This is the 5th fight, I believe, in the UFC in less than 11 months for RDR. And it could be his final one before potentially earning that shot. We're going to see who's going to get the first shot at new middleweight champion Khamzat Chimaev. Now, odds makers have RDR as a clear favorite in this 5-round main event. Luke, why is the Dutch Knight expected to win, and what does Brendan Allen offer that could potentially force the upset here, as he's almost being overlooked in this matchup because of the late change?
Now, very quickly, Long Island Luke, what are our DraftKings odds as it stands right now? Because I know the line has been moving.
It's minus 198 RDR, plus 164 Brendan Allen.
Okay, so, not a huge favorite for RDR BC, but let's say a relatively clear one. I think the answers are pretty obvious. However, I'm going to give them. However, I will say this. This fight will be fun. This fight will be fun, and I think at least early, Brendan Allen is going to be very competitive. Also, Brendan Allen has some pretty unique experience that I think we should talk about. But BC, to answer the question, RDR is on a hot streak. He's not the only fighter on this card who's competing for the 4th time this year, but he is the only one in the main event that is doing it this way. And of course, as you indicated, he was expected to fight Anthony Hernandez. He fell out. And so as a consequence, he's taking on an opponent on late-minute notice. So you have a guy on a hot streak who has 3 wins so far this year, and he's taking on someone else who's filling in on short notice. And that person filling in on short notice has at times kind of faded down the stretch, BC. A guy who's actually pretty well-rounded, particularly in the grappling department, but has this seeming inability to maintain the attack during the course of the bout. There are these very big swings in momentum with him. That's part of it. I think that's basically the answer. But BC, what it really comes down to is you would imagine Brendan Allen's going to want to probably keep this. I suspect he's going to want to get on top on the ground. You might say he's going to want to keep it on the feet, but I don't know about that, right? I think that part's a little bit harder to say. A guy like Brendan Allen likes to come forward. RDR has those intercepting knees. He's rangier. I do think he's going to be slower of the two. And I do think he might get hit with some big bombs. In fact, BC, if you go to Brendan Allen's fight, for example, against Paul Craig got drilled in the second round, kind of just trying to lean away from a big overhand right. And I think that might get him into trouble. Nevertheless, if RDR has proven anything, it's durability. He'll clinch up. He will pull guard. And on the ground, Brendan Allen actually does have pretty good ground and pound from guard. But the only real guard players he's ever went against were, again, Paul Craig. And, you could say Imavov a little bit, I suppose, but not really. RDR is like the most unique threat, I think, between standing and guard playing together as like a sort of combined threat. And to me, that's just a lot of ways in which this fight could get away from Brendan Allen, where he's got a particular set of strengths, but these noteworthy weaknesses, you would think RDR has a very acute ability to take advantage of that, whether it's on the feet or the ground. And again, the fact that he has good durability, it is 5 rounds, coming in on short notice. There's just a lot of reasons to think that this is probably, BC, RDR's fight to lose.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'm interested to see the demeanor here of Brendan Allen. You mentioned in the past maybe getting tired, or I don't want to throw him into, first team all donk mode or say he's mistake prone or anything of that. But, it feels like there were times that Brendan Allen could break through or should break through and hasn't, particularly the tail end of that 7-fight win streak, which was very strong, included 5 submission wins. And of course, took him into that big rematch against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, where he didn't overly impress, right? Had back-to-back decision losses, both to Fluffy and Nasruddin Imavov, to sort of slow his momentum, but to give him credit, he did bounce back this summer to get a fight of the night victory over Marvin Vettori. But it's almost as if Brendan Allen, despite the odds being close, as we mentioned, is being looked at as a second-rate afterthought. This was supposed to be Fluffy. Oh, but Fluffy beat Allen. This is a replacement. Maybe it takes down a peg the meaning of this fight or how big the opportunity is for RDR. I wonder, though, a little bit similar to something we're going to talk about next week in the build to UFC 321 and the spot that Cyril Gahn sits in entering a fight against Tom Aspinall, where we're just like, oh yeah, automatically, right? Tom's going to go in there and do what the other guys have done to him. I wonder if this brings the opportunity for Brendan Allen to overachieve, to not have that same level of pressure he had when he was riding a 7-fight win streak, and to be a little bit under the radar and a little bit dangerous. Because, Luke, here's the weird part. For as red hot as RDR is and how much he has escalated his reputation, remember, comes to the UFC kind of out of nowhere from one championship, breaking the contract or however it happened, where we're like, okay, let's see what this guy in his mid-30s can do. Doesn't look like a killer against GM3, but then gets on that quick run. Kevin Holland, Bo Nickel, and suddenly we're going split decision win over Robert Whittaker, where rightfully we're all talking, yeah, this guy's on the verge of legitimate title contention. But when you really match him up skill for skill, I kind of believe that this is a sneakier, closer fight than at least the general reaction is to when they found out that Allen is popping in as the replacement. It kind of feels like this is a huge opportunity for Brendan Allen to upset the apple cart with almost no pressure here and slide in and do something big for his career. He comes in as the 9th ranked middleweight. Of course, you got RDR at number 4 and could be looking at a title shot with a big performance. So, Luke Thomas, how big does that performance, if it goes RDR's way, and I know we're going to break down this fight even more and get into it, but straight up here, how much does the swapping out from Fluffy to Brendan Allen affect how dominant or how spectacular do you think RDR would need to be to one-up what Nasruddin Imavov already did?
I don't think it has to be too much. Imavov did not perform poorly, but it was not overwhelming, and I don't know that, given the way in which he's situated, not so much in the division, but I think in the UFC's mind, based on what we can tell about them. And again, we're making some inferences. We're not mind readers. it would seem to me that even as you indicated with the loss of Fluffy Hernandez, you sub in Brendan Allen, does he still have the same opportunity to advance? And I would submit to you that he probably does, unless he goes in there and really gets like ekes out. If it's similar to the Whitaker fight, which I just cannot imagine that it would be, but if it's similar to the Whitaker fight where it's like this really kind of fight that kind of, slows down as it goes longer, it's there's a split decision potentially, let's say, something like that. Now we're dealing with something very different. Now we're like, well, who's really got a mandate? Maybe the guy from France we should just probably give it to, right? Something along those lines. But I just feel like with the kind of like, dude, you can build momentum. It's hard to build momentum in certain ways, BC. However, if you can do it fast. You know what I mean? Like, it's very difficult to get that thing going. But for the ones who do it, you can see in a calendar year, you can put together essentially a title shot campaign from beginning to end almost. And that's what you have in RDR. And so I just feel like that hot streak is powering him, where if he gets a clear decision finish, certainly a stoppage victory, I would imagine he's going to be the guy to get it. And by the way, not for nothing, again, I don't know how this is. There's a lot of questions about how Paramount's, turning pay-per-views into PLEs is going to change the calculus of, what kind of cards we get and who's on them, blah, blah, blah. But assuming it's like how it's been, the fact that RDR speaks English also, it's not like the most important thing. But again, all these other factors, plus if he gets a stoppage, plus he's a native English speaker, yeah, I would imagine that they're going to give favoritism to that guy. Yeah.
Touching on what I sort of said earlier, is it fair when we're talking about RDR? Is he as good as the 4-0 run he's on in the last 11 months since coming to the UFC, which I mentioned? Remember, the Meerschaert fight, he did not look like a killer. He didn't move his head. He was getting lit up. But, I mean, is it the momentum that has him this dangerous at this moment? Or is he just category for category a better fighter than Brendan Allen on paper as we enter this?
Oh,
because I don't think we fully know who De Ridder is right now in this mix, right? Because some of it has been like, not luck. I'm not saying it's luck, but some of it has been awkwardness, momentum. Like, he's just kind of been in the right place, the right time. And you look, you don't beat Robert Whitaker unless you're legit. That's for real. But I just kind of wonder if we're overlooking Allen too much. Am I?
Yeah. So I have a slightly, I think I agree, but it maybe in a backwards way. I feel like at 35, we actually know a fair amount about De Ridder. It's Brendan Allen at 29 that I have a little more curiosity about. And, listen, he's on a one-fight win streak. He lost to Imavov, and he lost to, who else did he lose to?
Fluffy,
yes. Those are two of the top guys in the division. Here's another top guy in this division. To the odds maker's point, to things we've been saying, I do think this is probably RDR's fight to lose. However, the curiosity factor here is on the Allen side, because he's still, I think he's in the full weight of his athletic prime, but I think he's still putting pieces of his game together. And this is really a pivotal stage where if he's going to make big leaps forward and really synthesize all the parts of his game into a coordinated, steady attack, I think he can do a lot, BC. Like, if you just look at parts of his game individually when he's on, it looks sharp. The body lock takedowns look sharp. The ground and pound looks sharp. The guard passing, the back taking, the submissions from the back. On occasion, he can get hit, being a little too aggressive standing, but he can deal it out as well. There's a lot to like about his game, but he hasn't been able to really put it all together against a super high-quality opponent. You kind of have a guy like that in RDR who is a little lanky, a little unusual, has strengths and dimensions of the game like the guard that are not necessarily in modern MMA the most important, but certainly if there's anything you can say about RDR is he's a creative winner, and he kind of finds ways to do it. And that kind of spirit of, hunting attacks like that seems to have been up to date one of Brendan Allen's problems. But can he turn a corner, BC? Let's say it out loud. If he beats RDR, this is by far his best win on his career. And he's got some good names on there, but this would be the best one.
Yeah, no question about that. And the end of that win streak, that 7-fight win streak I mentioned, split decision win over Chris Curtis, submission wins over Paul Craig, Bruno Silva, Andre Muniz. So he's beaten some legit guys along the way, but this would be huge. But the question of whether RDR actually is everything he's looked like, at least of late, is an interesting one. And it's one that Brendan Allen has been thinking about too, So much so, and going public with those thoughts, that we're going to have to bring in our friends at Cuervo here for a little bit of shots fired. Of course, shots fired brought to you by Cuervo. Now is a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. Here's Brendan Allen at Media Day, not so impressed overall with everything that the Dutch Knight has to offer.
I mean, it doesn't impress me. Like, maybe I'm hard to impress, but there's not one fight or one moment where you're like, oh man, like this guy's like crazy or he's something special. Like, when we fight, everything's gonna happen on my timeline, not on your timeline. So when I want to go to the ground, then we're gonna go to the ground. Because you know he's probably gonna shoot in the first. It could be the first 10 seconds. It could be in the first minute. But before 2.5 minutes of the first round, he's gonna shoot. I promise you, he's gonna shoot. To answer your question, yes, I definitely think everyone's building this hype and this false sense of he's something that he isn't. He isn't this guy. He's not that guy. Like he hasn't had a guy put it on him for real. Like, and him have to take it and withstand it. He's just not that guy. He's not that guy. He's not built like me. Like, he's not built. He's just not built. We're not built the same.
Look, he's not that guy. He's not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. I think he might be. But certainly Brendan Allen has engaged in trash talk that I think at times has blown up in his face. This could be another example of that. I just feel like, again, this looks to me like RDR's fight to lose, but truly, for the career of Brendan Allen, a historic opportunity.
Yes, very true. And if you want a little bit more Cuervo in your life, get ready next week. UFC 321 Fight Week, Wednesday, October 22nd, 11 a.m. Eastern, live from the Meadowlark Studios in New York. It is UFC 321 pre-game preview, Morning Kombat, brought to you by Cuervo, BCLT, the Iceman Chuck Mindenhall, and hopefully some more of that Devil's Reserve, Long Island Luke. Do we have that? Tell me we do.
That's a Korean censor question. I don't know.
All right,
yeah, we have to ask the North Korean censors if they procured more.
All right, thank you very much. Staying with RDR here, is he on weight? He is a big dude. He is a big middleweight who's fought at light heavyweight and heavyweight under the one championship flag. I believe, do we have footage here of him standing on a scale days out from the fight here? What are we looking at, Luke?
Yeah, kilos, 100 kilos. And he's like, I'm on weight. And it's like, this was a couple of days ago, or maybe 3 days ago at this point. He's like, I'm on weight. And I'm like, 220 pounds, give or take, right? That's sort of where he's at for 185. Like, and by the way, understand, bro, this is the 4th time he's cut weight this year. He has fought at light heavyweight. He's actually fought higher than light heavyweight when he was fighting Anatoly Malakin and won. This is the 4th time he's cutting weight, and he's cutting weight from 220. Yeah, that's a lot on a person's body at age 35. Something to keep in mind.
I mean, like we said, if he wins this, that would be 5-0 to start his UFC career, all within 11 months. That's insane.
That's insane.
It's not only insane to turn your, to make a name for yourself, turn your reputation around. It's insane on your body to go through that. So we'll see as we have Long Island Luke watching the scales closely there in Vancouver. What happens. I believe Shaq Majori, Vancouver resident, is also covering it this week for CBS Sports, Luke. So you'll be getting texts often.
I blocked his number. We're good.
Good stuff right there. Speaking of RDR and his exit from one championship, which allowed this, he had a few things to say about Chatri's promotion there during fight week here. Let's listen.
You're not the youngest yourself, and yet you seem
Don't tell anybody.
You seem to have a lot left in the tank. I mean, what do you attribute your success at this point of the game to?
One championship saved me by not giving me fights. Thank you, one championship.
So, look, is he saying they kept him young and spry by holding him out?
By essentially freezing him for so long, it kept his body fresh, but dude, honestly, if you think about it, there's something to be said for that. If he had been really worn down from like one campaign, would he have had the energy and even the momentum or just even the mental space to be like, okay, let's make a huge push with UFC right now? Probably not, right? Yeah. So, I'm not saying it's good he was iced by one or whatever you want to say that they did. I guess what I would say is this is what it means to take something that didn't go well and then kind of remix it into a positive, especially if you can get a win on Saturday with it and get a title shot.
And back to what Brendan Allen said about him not being that guy. I mean, if you watch the tape, you can see the holes or the awkwardness or the unusual nature of what RDR does, but it's the fact that he uses that awkwardness to his favor. He's like a pitcher who throws, off-speed junk, but then can come back with the fastball. He fills in holes by being awkwardly aggressive. He's just something weird about. I mean, Robert Whitaker had a lot of trouble dealing with that weirdness right there. So it's just a funky, different rhythm to his game. I think he makes the most of not being known as a striker by being an awkwardly dangerous striker at times with the knees, with he'll mix in some lead elbows. I mean, when you look back at that Meerschaert fight, how do you come to terms with why he was so off that night?
I don't know. It was a sloppy mess, was it not? It was he's had some issues even in that fight with Whitaker, where there was times where dude, he's about to get bombed on, crossing his feet up and turning, you know what I mean? Off balance. The best punchers, the best strikers you've ever seen, they're really well balanced. They can move around and they don't have to, they're still in a position to defend and throw, right? They keep their legs under them. RDR is not that guy. You know what I mean?
You're not that guy. Yeah.
You're not that guy, pal. But his footwork is it's not the best part of his game. It's not the thing that he excels at. What he excels at is he's got some good striking, to be clear. And again, we saw what those intercepting knees did to not just Bo Nickel. By the way, those affected Robert Whitaker too. They are universally good. And he's got some long range shots as well. But BC, to a risk-taking kind of puncher that Brendan Allen is, that is a potential vulnerability to take seriously,
No doubt about that. So RDR, of course, known for that incredible submission game, the jiu-jitsu and all that. Yet Brendan Allen does have 14 wins by submission of the 25 in his pro career. Luke, how do we see the wrestling, anti-wrestling, the grappling? How does that match up? Will we see a lot of this fight contested on the ground? How do you sort of see these two skill sets?
I would be very surprised if it didn't end up there at some point, in part because Brendan Allen has strengths there. RDR has strengths there. You would imagine, okay, that might cancel it out, and it could. Let's be clear about that. It absolutely could. However, Brendan Allen, to me, I think one of the things that's kind of tripped him up a little bit is he doesn't necessarily always have the discipline to fight on the terms that are most advantageous for him. He sometimes just kind of resorts to what feels, I think, more natural to him. And that's understandable. That is a choice that a lot of even very good fighters make. And to be clear, he is one. But I think to really excel, sometimes you have to have a very disciplined approach to your attack. And BC, the fact he's also coming in on late notice, to what extent might he just, sprint at the beginning of the fight because that's all that he has. He has 2.5 rounds in him. And then after that, the whole thing falls apart. So that to me just kind of facilitates him wanting to take the fight to the ground, maybe to prove a point, because I do think that stuff kind of matters to him. Again, he does have good ground and pound, and he's got good submissions. He might think he can wear him out from there and maintain whatever energy he has. So, if the fight ends up being fully on the feet, that would not be some kind of shock. I think it'd be more a shock, though, if they never went to the ground. I think that some inevitability to me is that it will lead there.
Yeah, I feel like that is an accurate statement. For the record, Brendan Allen has gone to the 5-round distance 3 times on the regional level before UFC, and he lost 2 of those, both by decision, one to Fluffy Hernandez in their first meeting and one to Eric Anders. And in the UFC, he's gone 5 rounds just once, but it was a 2024 split decision win over Chris Curtis in their rematch. Now, RDR's history, just 2 defeats, both by stoppage, but they did come against heavyweight crusher Anatoly Malikin, multi-divisional champion there. And on the flip side, Brendan Allen has been stopped 3 times, 2 by strikes in the UFC to Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland, 1 by submission on the regional level to Trevin Giles. So we'll see how that plays into here as we close in on pick time here. Long Island Luke, where are you leaning from a betting strategy on how you're going to handicap this? It is hard to take full confidence in Brendan Allen doing something in a key spot we haven't seen before, but you are getting plus money on him.
Yeah, I stayed away from most money lines on this card. I'm not going to lie. I have the over 1.5 in a parlay. I do think it goes a little long. I don't know if it goes all 5 rounds, but I think it goes at least 3. My prediction would be like RDR late or RDR by decision.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
LT, I got to write RDR here. I can see the picture here for Brendan Allen to surprise some people. I love RDR all the way back to 1, but I don't even think he's necessarily as good as his hot streak as much as I want to see him get that shot at the title. But I think when it comes down to it, those knees wearing down his opponent, I could see a 4th round submission win here for RDR. I can really see it. I'm locked in on that.
He, to me, is more proven against elite competition. Hello, he's riding a win over fucking Robert Whittaker heading into this fight. Like, you know, he's just proven more at a higher level. And again, Brendan Allen has flashes where he looks real good, but it's kind of like the Marab rule. I'm not picking against Marab until I see somebody beat him. You know, like until then, he's like the default guy. And I'm not saying that RDR has that kind of a hold on the division, but what I'm saying is, given the matchup, you know, I'll believe Allen can beat him when I see it. You know, I think he can, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's not my pick. My pick is RDR. I think he gets it done, probably via stoppage, probably late, but either way, I suspect his hand will be raised.
Will he get the nod against Chimaev? That is the question. But Chimaev isn't talking so much about making that first title defense lately, whether it's going to be against Imavov, whether it's going to be against RDR if he wins on Saturday. He's talking still about wanting to go up to 205 and take on Alex Pereira. We've got sound from Brendan Allen reacting to that.
What do you think of Khamzat calling out Alex Pereira and wanting to move up to 205 before he even has a title defense?
I think that's kind of like the story of Chimaev, right? Like, he just talks a lot. He gets a lot of eyes. Like, it's not to the degree, but it's like Conor talking just to stay relative. Obviously, like, Chimaev's not that bad, right? He doesn't say that much stuff and that much reckless stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I think he's got a lot of work to do in our division first, and it's not like he's a huge 85er that's cutting a lot like Alex was to get to 85, to where it's like, all right, I became a champion, I defended once, like, let's just go up or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's weird, but I don't think that's in his future right now.
You know, Luke, I would have to agree with Brendan Allen there on the last point, from the standpoint of Chimaev has not defended the title yet. Pereira's got to recover from the broken foot. There's already talk about him and John Jones at the White House. As much as Chimaev versus Pereira at 205 would just be a monstrosity of a fight and would get us itching. Remember when I had that rash right there in Florida that time at that Jake Paul fight? Remember that thing that was climbing up? It was trying to, right? Or
I guess I don't remember this. You had a rash at the Jake Paul fight?
Yeah, remember during the documentary, the one where Schaub showed up to in Miami, Logan Paul versus Floyd?
Vaguely.
All right. You should go back and watch our greatest hits right there. I don't even know how we got into this conversation. I would love me some Chimaev versus Pereira. I agree it's not going to happen. But whether or not RDR can get the nod, we have a final piece of sound from DeRitter of whether he's confident that a win will get him there.
Khamzat Chimaev today, he called out Alex Pereira. Did you see this? He said, I want to go up to light heavyweight. What do you make of this when there's clearly such big fights happening right now and he hasn't even defended the belt yet?
Oh, well, to be honest, first thing I thought was as well, this is bullshit, but it is a cool matchup, huh? It is a cool matchup to see Khamzat, see if he can get him down and stay safe. But I don't see it happening. But yeah, I get it. Yeah.
You always want to pursue the next big thing, but everyone's chasing someone else's dream, right? And you need the other person to help you get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. But you're hoping he sticks at 185. Like, it doesn't really seem like UFC is maybe going to seriously consider this. Pereira wants to go to heavyweight, apparently.
So everybody's moving up. No, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I imagine if I do well this weekend, I'm able to put Brendan away. I'll be fighting for the belt early 2026.
That's interesting because Imavov at home in Paris did make a strong statement. No finish against Bohalio, but it was a strong-ass statement, and he's on, I would say, a better win streak of quality of names than the one that RDR is on. But then again, RDR is doing things that the company loves. Fights on short notice, quick turnarounds, take whoever's next in line. So it's going to be interesting, Luke. It's going to be interesting.
This is what I mean. This can all be put to bed if RDR goes in there and smashes him. Or conversely, if Brendan Allen goes in there and smashes him, you get some pretty important clarity at that point. But I just feel like the UFC is kind of like, okay, Reinier, this is finish the job. You know what I mean? And he has to do it. But that's the way everything feels.
Indeed, right there. All right, let's hit into topic number 2, which is the rest of the UFC Vancouver card. And of this breakdown of the UFC Vancouver card is brought to you by Total Wireless, the official wireless provider of UFC. Get unlimited data that won't slow you down. There's nothing slowing down Kevin Holland from his goal of being the next Cowboy Cerrone and fighting almost as many times as RDR has of late. He'll be in the co-main event against Mike Malott. Your current odds in this matchup, Kevin Holland -110, Mike Malott -110, a virtual pick'em at welterweight. Luke, we know the story. If Kevin Holland is dialed in, if his back's against the wall, he fights one way. If they call him to fight somebody at 185 on 2 weeks' notice, he seems to fight another way. Is there any chance he loses this matchup if he comes in with the former mentality that maybe it's time to book some wins and make some noise in this division?
He really shouldn't lose this fight. He really shouldn't lose this fight. If you look at the fights that Neil Magny, excuse me, what am I saying, Neil Magny? If you look at the fights that Kevin Holland has lost, BC, he made an interesting point with Mike Bond this week talking about them. But, for example, before the last one, the two before that were Reinier de Ridder, 85, Roman Dolidze, 85. He lost to MVP, 85, Jack Della Maddalena, 85. He lost to Wonder Boy, but now we're back in 2022. And then Khamzat, which, is Khamzat, who's now the middleweight champion. The vast majority of those guys are middleweights. Now, the last one of those is D-Rod. BC, what's kind of interesting is Kevin Holland told Mike Bond he has 2 regrets over the losses that he has. One was to Daniel Rodriguez, and I think the other one was to Derek Brunson. And he was, again, by the way, Marvin Vettori, Derek Brunson, these are all 85ers. At 70, he's kind of a different fighter, but the last one, of course, was at 70, and he still lost it anyway. So you feel like Mike Malott might be able to get it done. But the thing about it with Kevin Holland is I do think on some level he does try to compete to win. It goes out the window in certain contexts. But against the Mike Malotts of the world, I tend to think you'll get a little bit more of it. He punches hard. He typically has good punch resistance. He's lengthy, highly experienced, dual threat. He can sub, and he can strike it out. Malott is kind of game, but as you saw against Neil Magny, can fall apart. For a guy like Holland who's experienced against the next weight class guys and is durable and is a dual threat, he really shouldn't lose this one. This would be this might be the worst loss of his MMA, or not won't say MMA, but this would easily be the worst loss of his UFC career, BC. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to look at, Thiago Santos, Brendan Allen, Derek Brunson, Marvin Vettori, Khamzat Chimaev, Wonder Boy, all the names I mentioned, and then D-Rod. Is this better or worse than D-Rod? I mean, your mileage may vary, but I would think it's actually a little bit worse. So, dude, I'm now talking in circles, so I'll stop, but this is a fight that Kevin Holland really cannot afford to lose. I'll put it that
crazy
way.
That Kevin Holland has 14 career losses, but he is willing to take chances and roll the dice right there. And in the 33-year-old Malott, the pride of Canada, of course, 5-1 in the UFC. You did mention the disastrous TKO loss to Neil Magny. He has bounced back since with 2 fairly quality wins. He's game, he's big, he's strong, all of that. This would be a huge opportunity for him on Canadian soil to beat a guy that, like you mentioned, a lot of us think is outright better than him, even though the odds are a virtual pick'em. I wonder how much that has to do with that D-Rod loss. But to be fair, D-Rod's back was against the wall late in his 30s. People were counting him out, and he came back with a very focused performance. But here is Mike Malott talking about preparing for Kevin Holland, which also means preparing for the distraction of his trash talk game.
Right, I haven't seen him this week yet. The last guy I fought, Charles Radke, talked a lot of trash beforehand, but not so much when we got in there. I don't know if my opponent's been talking any trash so far. I assume when we're in there, he'll be talking a lot of trash, and kind of we prepared for that with my training partners, just talking trash all training camp when we're drilling, when we're sparring, having my mental coach cage side yelling at me, during sparring and fight simulations and stuff. So I feel, very well prepared and comfortable to deal with that.
You mentioned prepping for Kevin Holland's talk with your training partners. Did any of them get you to crack?
The times that got me to crack were when other people didn't know that we were doing that, and they started laughing. They're like, "Dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you calling him that?" And they were like, "Oh no, we're doing this for my opponent's going to talk trash." And they're like, "Oh yeah, definitely good call. He's definitely going to do that." So those are the times that it was funny, but otherwise, no. Like, just staying focused, right?
Luke, I guess you got to prepare for everything. I mean, before a big road trip, you often get copious amounts of diarrhea during that week before, just to prepare you for what it's going to be like on the train and plane. Yeah,
Listen, if there's anything the Newark Penn Station has taught me is go before you get there. You know what I'm saying?
or while you're on the way on the train 3 times with blood. Wow, how much are we going to expose of Luke right here? Long Island Luke, I'm curious from the betting side here. I think this is Holland's fight to lose. I'm not a huge believer in Mike Malott. The odds makers aren't sure. Are you sure when you make the bets on the main card minute this week?
No, I think you guys got to give Mike Malott a little more credit. I mean, the only loss he's had is Neil Magny in the UFC. Like, that's not a bad loss. I don't know. Kevin Holland.
Sure about that? That was a pretty bad loss.
Kevin Holland's so wishy-washy. Also, there's an argument to make that, depending on how Mike Malott's career goes after this fight, there's an argument to be made that the D-Rod loss is worse than losing to Mike Malott. Mike Malott could go on to have a great career. We don't know.
Yes, that one is at least possible to consider. Yes.
Yeah, I will say.
Hold on a second. Back up a step. Mike Malott's loss to Neil Magny was very bad. That was a very bad loss.
Sure, but he also was like a minus 500 favorite going into that. He had a lot of hype behind him going into that. Maybe he just didn't live up to the expectations. I don't know. I'm not in on Mike Malott. I just feel like you guys need to give him a little more credit here. It is a pick 'em for that reason. I got Mike Malott. I got Kevin Holland at plus 105 like 2 days ago, and I was feeling way better at him as a dog. I wouldn't really fuck with him at minus money here, but I'm riding with him either way. I think Kevin Holland could get it done, so he's got enough weapons. Let's go.
I mean, Mike Malott had a lot of momentum from 3 straight finishes in the UFC before that Neil Magny fight. But to be fair, they were against Mickey Gall and 2 guys without a Wikipedia page. So that was a wake-up call. But since then, decision win over Trevin Giles, knockout of Charles Radke. We're going to find out heads up here what this man has. Luke, you just tend to pick against Canadians. That's just what it is,
I do?
I'm just throwing something out there.
Trust me, when St. Pierre fought, I was not picking against him.
Fair point. All right. We'll see what you're going to say about Jasmine Jasdavicius soon. But fun matchup, I would guess here. But look, to close, can Malott handle Holland's ground game?
Not if he's tired.
Yeah.
It's not good enough to where his instinct and overall level of ability to stay safe underneath will preserve him. But if he does it early and it's limited and he's in control of it because he's setting the terms, he'll be okay.
Holland has a way of getting those chokes in. You know what I'm saying?
Got a great Darce, has arm bars. He's Travis Lutter black belt. That they don't hand those out.
No. Travis Lutter, former UFC title challenger.
Very good black belt, by the way. People kind of clown on the whole situation because of Goldie's, calling him the Michael Jordan of grappling, which he's not, but he's very, very good. He was a very, very good grappler, and he had fucked up his weight cut when he fought. Dude, that was the thing about that. Seriously, in Anderson Silva, there were so many times I'm like, oh well, okay, Travis Lutter's not better than him, but he's got way better ground game. He's gonna fuck him up, and then he takes him down, and you're like, oh well, here we go. He's gonna crush him, and then he just collapses because he had such a horrible weight cut that he couldn't do it. And I'm like, oh, there were so many, Anderson Silva to me was like, you knew he was good when he came over from Pride, but I didn't think he would go on to do what he did because there were so many times I'm like, oh, he's going to get tripped up by this guy. Nope. Just kind of kept doing it.
I mean, technically, is Lutter not a title challenger because he blew weight for that fight?
I guess that's technically correct, but he was scheduled for a title fight. I mean, that's the best way to put it.
Shout out to him and Talis Latis for being Silva victims during that stretch there. Let's go now down the line here to the bantamweight division. Marlon Chito Vera, loser of 3 of his last 4, obviously against very elite competition. But he's sat out a while to refresh. A 14-month layoff he will snap entering Saturday's matchup against a surging Aiemann Zahabi, the Canadian, the Ariel Helwani impersonator. When we look at the odds for this, Vera plus 114, your slight underdog against Zahabi minus 135. Speaking of that burnout Chito went through, it wasn't just with this, although I'm going to guess maybe it was that too, right? Shout out to that guy. Here's Chito Vera talking about what he went through to refresh to get back to this point.
I mean, like, gotta be something definitely at a skill and mental level, right? If you're fairly short, something is wrong, right? And you know, it's so easy to just point fingers. I could blame my coaches, my friends, my family. I can blame anything, right? But then I go and sometimes just take a seat and have an honest conversation with yourself, because we know inside what's going on. We know everything that happened. It's just a matter of we want to talk or not out loud about it. And I really feel I was just burned out.
Luke, interesting. Chito Vera just 32, yet with 3 losses in his last 4, we're talking about what does he have left here? Yet he's fighting a 37-year-old in Zahabi who's riding a 6-fight win streak, and we're figuring out what do you actually have. On the Chito Vera side, how much do you think he has left, and does that include getting back to the elite level?
Well, as you mentioned, 32, Zahabi 37. It's kind of funny. You kind of sort of see Zahabi as the newer, fresher face, which on some level he is, because he has not been this high in the rankings previously. He's kind of slowly earned it with this, like, whatever, I think he's on like a 6-fight win streak, something like that, to put himself in this place. The answer to that is only whether or not Chito has meaningfully worked on his skills. That's it. He had some to begin with. He's got pretty good Muay Thai. You know, he obviously is durable as shit, right? I mean, he's got one of the best chins at 35 I've ever seen. And he can do something with that, but that's got a limit, and he found that limit. The wrestling wasn't there, and fights like, you know, Corey Sandhagen, for example, he got thumped a little bit with punching power by Davison Figueiredo, which was kind of surprising. And I mean, you could diagnose the stuff that went wrong against Sean O'Malley. He was just kind of running into stuff. The issues are skills. It's skills. It's skill development, and that's the most important thing. And I think he's certainly come a long way from even the guy who we saw at the beginning of his UFC run. He has really, you know, matured significantly. But BC, you're asking, you know, can he go even further after a little bit of time off? The answer is only if he worked on his skills. This division is too tough. There are so many talented guys. It's not easy for anybody. You know, well, Merab makes it look kind of easy, but it's not. And you know, I mean, I feel like a broken record on this show. Guys are like, what's the right weight class? Did the time off help? I don't know. Did they fix their skills? Because if they didn't do that, that's the most important one.
And Chito dropped decisions over his last 4 fights to Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, and their rematch for the championship, and Davison Figueiredo. And I did see Chito this week talking a lot about he feels he fought very stupidly against O'Malley in the rematch and wasn't listening to his coaching staff, was fighting an emotional style, just trying to get O'Malley. So we've seen that trap before. Chito, a very violent striker, but it's going to be about putting together the complete game. And you mentioned Merab, the champion of this division. How about Chito Vera being inspired by Merab's recent run? And that has got him back up off the couch, back in the gym, and back where he is right now. Let's listen to Marlon.
Last time you also fought, Merab Dvalishvili wasn't even the champion yet. Now he's like almost cleared out the division, on the verge of the most title defenses we've ever seen. What have you just made of his run as champion? And it seems like, you know, he's going through all these guys. He's going to need fresh people to fight at some point.
He's good, man. He's really good, and he fights at a pace that he make you doubt yourself. Like, he have showed that, you know, not the most skillful striker, not the most clean grappling, because he's not tapping everyone out like other people like Demian back in the day, but he just put it together, and doesn't matter how it looks when he gets it done. So it's amazing what he's doing, and you know, that's one of the persons that have like almost in a way motivate me to, you know what, let's get my shit together. Let me figure it out how to win these fights, because I can get there again, and it would be good to have a fight like that one day, because it's just a challenge that brings up to the table. It's like the guy I'm fighting. He's coming off a good streak. It motivates me to like, okay, let's prove who's better, and that gets me out of the bed every morning.
All right, look at this. I like that. Merab being an inspiration to everyone. Luke, let's talk about Aiemann Zahabi. Maybe it's a little bit deceiving to see that age of 37. He didn't really get going into his career at full speed until recently. Of course, he's the younger brother of Firas Zahabi, the famous coach. So he grew up at the highest levels of MMA, watching GSP do his thing, coming off a victory over the legend Jose Aldo. How good is Aiemann Zahabi in your eyes?
I mean, that win is pretty controversial. I don't recall that being the cleanest win I've ever seen. However, the fact that he was even competitive in it was also kind of surprising. That was his featherweight debut, which is also worth noting. I mean, listen, the record that he has is interesting, right? So he had 2 losses back-to-back to Ricardo Ramos and Vince Morales. This was in 2017 and 2019. So he didn't fight at all in 2018. He fought once in 2019, he lost. Not at all in 2020. He fought once in 2021, he won. Once in 2022, he won against fighters with, by the way, no Wikipedia entries. Then he fought Aori, I can't pronounce his name. It's the Chinese donk. Aori Qilin, I'm not sure how you say it. That's in 2023. He fought 1 time. Then he fought 2 times in 2024, and that's where he really rounded the corner. He beats Pedro Munoz and Javid Basharat. Those are both pretty quality wins. And then he has the Jose Aldo one up a weight class, which was totally surprising, albeit somewhat controversial. Yeah. So he is certainly surging. And I do think, BC, he's one of these guys. He didn't fight a bunch, as you clearly can hear. He took a bunch of time off. It was kind of always in the gym, always in the gym, always in the gym. I don't really know if his upside is good enough to beat Chito, even with all the questions that are surrounding him. What I can say is, BC, while there is some weight class movement as part of what he's been doing a little bit more recently, even of course the Rodriguez fight he had was at 140, what I will say is I do think this is a guy who has worked on his skills. This is a guy who is like, my focus is not going to be so much when I'm fighting and who I'm fighting and in what weight class, rather when I'm ready, when I have something to do, when I feel like I want to test myself based on what I've been working on. And that makes him dangerous. That makes him probably unassuming to a degree. I think if it comes down to a battle of heart, he can't beat Chito. If it comes down to a battle of chin, he can't beat Chito. And I think if it comes down to a battle of striking, he shouldn't. But BC, this is a dude, as you indicated, surprisingly he's 37, but has just kind of steadily swung the axe in such a way where if Chito really didn't get better after taking time off from the burnout, I think he could play spoiler here. I do believe that.
Or maybe Chito comes back with a Jorge Masvidal-like resurgence, Luke, a violent resurgence.
Long Island Luke, by the way, is telling us the guy's name who I cannot pronounce is, and I'm going to probably botch it here, but get a little bit closer, Orichi Lang, something like that.
That sounds right. Shazan.
Macy Chiasson. Is that what it
is? There it is. Chito Vera comes in as the number 7th ranked bantamweight in the UFC. Number 9 is Aiemann Zahabi, who believes this win could catapult him. And to be fair, if he beats Chito Vera, that's 7 straight wins. That's a top 10 victory. We talking title contention here? Let's hear from Zahabi about this.
Yeah, I think Petr Yan deserves it. I think he proved himself to have the match, and I think he was talking about something interesting that happened in the first fight, Merab. He couldn't throw right hands, and then he said, "I look at the stats. I barely used my right hand, so maybe his hand was broken going into the fight, or he had some kind of injury in there." So I would, if I was Merab's team, I wouldn't expect the fight to go the same way it went the first time around. And I think he's got a good chance to put on a great fight against Merab. Merab is definitely a puzzle. He's hard to beat, but you see that he does get stunned and he does get hurt. So there's always a possibility. And I absolutely love Merab's humility when he beat Corey Sandhagen and he was in the octagon and he was talking. And, they're giving him compliments. And he said, you know what, I can lose at any moment. It can happen to me. I can get hit and go down. And I'm proud that the bantamweight division has a champion like that that shows the humility. He reminds me of George St. Pierre in that sense. So, much respect to both guys, and I'm excited to come up there and face them. If Merab keeps clearing the guys ahead of me, there might be a route for me for a title fight beating Marlon Vera in 2026. Who knows?
I will say, Merab has cleaned out this division so aggressively. He's going to face Petr Yan for his 4th title defense this calendar year on December 6th. We all know next week's Umar Nurmagomedov-Mario Bautista fight probably produces the next title challenger after that. But if Zahabi wins this, he will potentially be, given Merab's activity level, not that far away from an opportunity, considering this division has been cleaned out. The problem is, Luke, I don't believe in his skill set at this level. His demeanor, his potential chin, the dog in him. I don't know. I'm not saying he's been getting by with smoke and mirrors. I'm just saying I have yet, including the Jose Aldo fight, to see a performance where I'm like, okay, let's see how far he can take this. Is this the fight that he convinces us?
Yeah, this is I have the same feeling, essentially, that what's missing is what's available in front of us, namely, a win over a quality guy who fought for a UFC title without ambiguity or asterisks. I think that's kind of what we're up against, right? That's the situation. And again, I feel like it's Chito that I don't want to overlook here. I think that, as we indicated, Zahabi could play spoiler, but this would be Jose Aldo's the bigger name, BC. I mean, having Jose Aldo on your resume is so big, but in terms of a win we can count on as a meaningful indicator, this might be a better one. Excuse me.
God bless you, Luke. Zahabi, a minus 135 favorite is Zahabi, but I think he's going to get stopped. I do. Okay, you heard it right here. Tell your friends. Come back to this tape.
By the way, Ilia Topuria, who apparently does like press conferences in Spain once a month. I don't quite understand what's happening there.
Oh, he holds his own press conferences all the time.
It's quite remarkable. He said he said a bunch of stuff, but this is the one I thought was kind of interesting, BC. See what you think about this. This is Topuria talking. Quote, I've already told Merab that he needs to change weight classes because he's 100% has a chance to win a second belt. You might say, okay, well, which weight class? As for a fight with Volkanovski, I have no doubts on what happens in that fight. I know that it ends with Merab winning. He wants Merab to move up to 45 and fight Volkanovski. And I got to tell you, I wasn't high on that fight too long ago, but it's increasingly becoming interesting to me.
All right. I believe I saw those comments transcribed from one She Loves the Gloves over there in Georgia. So
yes, same press event where Topuria congratulates himself. Apparently,
shout out to Duty on that. Yeah, I believe Topuria is now a sponsor for a big bank there. We have heard Merab in the past say he doesn't want to move up, but he's got to get through Umar a second time. You heard it. You heard it right here. He's got to get through Umar a second time before we even have this conversation. So that's the facts right there. We'll find out about this matchup for Zahabi. I'm fired up about this next fight, Luke. Why am I the only one that cares a lot about Manon Fiorot coming off the title loss there to Valentina Shevchenko, looking to stay relevant at the top end of this division, welcoming and absolutely streaking Jasmine Jasudavicius. And as we look at the odds right now, the French product Fiorot minus 230, your favorite, to the plus 190 Jasudavicius. But this is the best form we've seen from Jasmine up to this point. Does she have the skill set to compete on even terms here with Fiorot?
I don't think so. Maybe the buck stops here, BC. Fiorot's got real tough takedown defense. She's physically, quite strong for this division. The fight with Shevchenko was boring, but if you recall, it started off very poorly for her, but it ended up being somewhat close.
Sure.
I just don't know who's got the physical tools necessary to beat someone like that, except for Shevchenko. Jasudavicius is probably a little bit more risk-taking, which can confer some benefits. Certain ways she might be a little bit looser, a little bit faster. But Fiorot's ability to control distance. Fiorot is, she doesn't have a very exciting game, but she controls the terms of the exchanges. And that is such a dominant factor in who ultimately wins. If she can put on a jab, she can put on a side kick. You know, she's physically strong. She's hard to take down. She's hard to get a body lock on. She's hard to do anything to, really. Even Shevchenko had to kind of be real. I mean, again, it started off great, but at the end had to kind of be real piecemeal about the offense. I just feel like, you know, it's a 3-round fight, so that changes the stakes and the way in which they fight to a degree, BC. But I'd be surprised if Jasudavicius gets her hand raised here. What Long Island Luke, what are the odds on this fight?
BC just named him. It was what, -230 Furo, +190 Jasmine.
Yeah, that sounds about right,
dude.
I'm in agreement with you. I love Jasmine. I love what she's done, how she's turned her game around pretty quickly. 36 years old, by the way, but she is operating at the peak of her powers after a couple early defeats on the rise up, decision losses to Tracy Cortez, to Natalia Silva. She's on a 5-fight win streak. 3 of those by submission, and they're not against non-Wikipedia entries. It's Cachoeira, it's Fatima Climb, Ariane De Silva, Bueno Silva, and then a submission win over Jessica Andrade. But Furo is on a different level. That takedown defense, the ability to control the terms of the fight with the striking. I think her striking, Furo I'm talking about, is aggressively ahead of what Jasmine can bring. I like the physicality that Jasmine brings to this division. I like the confidence in her ground game. But I feel like Furo is not done competing at the title level, for as disastrous of the start of that Shevchenko fight went. And I think Furo is going to come back and prove exactly who she is here. Great opportunity for Jasmine on home soil. But, dude, Furo is really good, and it took the Blanchfield fight for me to fully see that.
Yes. She is better than I thought, too. I just feel like, listen, Furo's got some limits to her game. We saw some of those in the last fight. She got I think she got her nose broken in that fight too.
Yeah.
You know, she took some real lumps in that contest. But she's got a real, surprisingly boring but stubborn physical game. And it takes someone who can match the physical tools and has a good enough skill set to get around that. And I feel like Jasudavicius gets maybe kind of close on both regards, but from what I can tell, not enough in either case. I guess we could be wrong. Let's see tomorrow.
All right, friend of the program, Matt Favola, is back to kick off the 6-fight main card, despite the fact that he's been off for 13 months following 2 brutal KO defeats. Luke, Matt Favola, we're trying to figure out what he has left here at age 35. He'll be taking on Kyle Nelson, and he will be a slight favorite here. It's a virtual pick'em. Favola -115, according to DraftKings, -105 for Nelson. How much does Matt Favola have left, or can you not even answer that question and just say he's either going to knock the guy out or get knocked out, because that is the story of his career?
Yeah, I mean, dude, like you took the words right out of my mouth. Just listen to the record. He gets KO'd viciously. I'm glad he took about a year off, BC. That's a good thing that he did. Obviously, that was at Cardin, I think, France. He gets kneed in the face by Farizziam. He loses. Benoit Saint-Denis, he gets head kicked, and that was also in 2023. So he fought 2 times in 2023, but just once in 2024. Before that, he beat Drew Dober, BC, in 1 round. He beat Aiemann Zahabi in 1 round. He beat Genario Valdez in 1 round. He lost to Terrence McKinney in 7 seconds. I mean, you just go on and on. He went the distance with Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 257 in 2021, but Tsarukyan was just kind of a very much only, still is, but like at the time, really only wrestle heavy, positional control kind of guy. But to anybody who opens up with him, BC, you see what it is. It's just he closes the fist and it's Armageddon. And, sometimes it's a little friendly fire. Like he can't quite, control it. So, Kyle Nelson has surprised me, BC. He lost to Steve Garcia, who's actually pretty good. But he has surprised me a little bit. I think this might be a tough fight for, you may have said the odds. I may have missed them.
Yeah, it's a virtual pick'em. Favola, a slight favorite.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one, because I feel like Favola is more of a physical hammer, but he's on a rough stretch. Kyle Nelson has surprised me in the past with like his precision striking in certain ways. This is a tough fight. It's a tough fight.
Yeah, we thought we would see Favola back at MSG. He's back earlier. Quickly, Long Island Luke, you tend to bet on anyone who's Australian or Long Islander. This man actually lives in your damn town. Are you going for him here?
I will throw a bet on him. I haven't yet. I'm going to throw him in a parlay, but I'm officially taking fight does not go the distance. Like you guys said, I think he either does the knocking out or gets knocked out. So I'm just rooting for violence here. Hopefully Matt takes it home, though.
Yeah, and put some respect on Steve Garcia's name or not. Either way, he's going to be in a main event coming up at the warehouse against Onama. Luke, what are we doing here, right? What are we doing?
That's a main event, bro.
Yeah, it is.
That's a main event.
It is. Luke, I got to say, top to bottom, this card is good, man. What else do you have your eyes on for this fight night card in Vancouver?
Yeah, here, let me pull my notes up. There we are. Okay. I mean, after that, it kind of falls off a little bit. We've been over some of the bigger ones. Fun fight is definitely going to be Bruno Silva versus Hyung Sung Park. Hyung Sung Park had a bit of a tough loss in his last fight, but it was under, unenviable circumstances. I think this will give you a better assessment of where he and his opponent are at in the flyweight division. So I like that. There's some interest around Danny Barlow and Jordan Santos as well. Also, history teacher Cody Gibson back against the gentleman I referenced earlier. Again, I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but Aor Chiling. Orichi Long, yeah, is in this contest as well. Drew Dober back in addition to all of this on the early prelim card against Kyle Prepolek, who I guess Dober should win that one. But listen, like I said, there's fun little gems up and down this card as my nose begins to now leak.
Oh, Long Island Luke, you were talking me before the show. While I need to focus aggressively on this guy who's in the second fight of the night, Azamat Bekoev at middleweight. Were you not?
I was just saying that, like, that fight alone, second fight of the night, Bekoev Belgari would easily be like co-main event on an Apex card. Like, this Bekoev guy got a lot of hype around him, 2 first-round knockouts. I believe he's an ATT trained guy. Belgari is Poetan's sparring partner.
Yes.
Obviously trains with him in Teixeira. I think this is going to be an all-action fight. Bekoev is a pretty decent favorite, so he probably gets it done. Either way, like, they're burying this fight. This is a great card. I'm hyped for it.
Good stuff right there. Luke Thomas, to close out on that Topuria conversation in Georgian when he was the sponsor of the bank, he did say in that if Islam defeats, he said if Islam loses to Della Maddalena, Islam's going to go back to riding his camels or mules or whatever the hell he said. But he said if Islam wins the welterweight championship, that he's ready to go up to 170 and fight him at the White House lawn to become the first 3-division champion.
I mean, I don't know what to say to that, right? Like, on the one hand, that would be kind of insane, and so I would want to see it, I think. On the other hand, it's like, bro, you don't have any title defenses in this division. What the fuck are we doing?
Who's going to get the first shot at the 3-division championship? Is it Poetan or Topuria?
I feel like I'm back on prop quiz and I have no idea what the answer is.
Look, who are the only 2 people to defeat Russian Red Rocket Ronda? Oh, sorry, it was 4 of them. By the way, she got cut. Yeah. Sorry.
She did?
Yeah, she did. She did.
Well, I'm sure you'll still be on her Instagram looking at her incredibly disturbing videos.
I 100% will. Yes, I will. Yes,
I don't know. I probably would say, honestly, I might say Poetan. I mean, he's riding some momentum, and I don't know if he's going to get the Jones fight. I don't know if he'll win it, but he's flirting with it up there, BC, and they don't have shit for Aspinall to fight. So yeah, I mean, maybe so.
All righty, that is UFC Fight Night Vancouver this weekend. And hey, everyone, Total Wireless is hooking you up with the ultimate fan experience. Get this, one lucky winner will score a round trip for 2 to New York City, hotel stay for 3 nights, VIP access to the UFC 322 ceremonial weigh-in, lower bowl seats to UFC 322 at New York's Madison Square Garden, tickets to the New York Giants Green Bay Packers NFL game, a brand new Motorola Razr 2025, and $1,000 spending cash. Wow. Do not miss out on this. Enter at any Total Wireless store from September 25th to October 26th. Total Wireless getting you hooked up for MSG in November. Do not miss that opportunity. Staying with the UFC here, let's go to topic number 3. UFC 323, December 6th in Las Vegas. the final pay-per-view of the ESPN era for UFC, has some announcements here. Most importantly, the main event, Merab Dvalishvili will attempt to set the record for title defenses within a calendar year. Tito Ortiz had 4 title defenses within a 12-month period, but this will be the first time in 1 calendar year when he welcomes Petr Yan for a rematch December 6th. Just how big of an achievement, Luke, do you think this would be for Merab, who is a minus 310 betting favorite, according to DraftKings, to the plus 250 Yan in this second fight?
I think this would be BC to me, and there's some debate about this. At worst, if he wins this, it's the 3rd best year any MMA fighter has had. Listen to what I'm saying. At worst, it's the 3rd best. I think you could make an argument for number 2. I don't know if I could make it number 1, especially if it goes to a decision. And BC, of course, you might be asking, as the audience might be, what would be the other 2 years?
He's not beating John Jones in 2011, right?
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. To your point, John Jones not only won every fight in 2011, he defended the title twice. So he beat the number 1 contender, then beat the champion, and then defended it twice. And all 4 he won via stoppage. He stopped all of them. And in fact, if you think about it, the last one of those, which was the Lyoto Machida one, he just dropped him iconically on his face. Like, dude, that is a year that will not be easily repeated, even by the likes of Merab Dvalishvili.
And he beat the bags off of Shogun for the title.
Yes.
And,
by the way, on 5 weeks, I mean, the Bader fight that he got it on was in February, and then it was in March when he fought Shogun because Rashad couldn't take it, and so he just, annihilated.
Remember,
him.
Bader, I think, was unbeaten. He was a massive prospect at 205.
Yes, and also this is one of my favorite things. Like, oh, when John beat Shogun, he was washed. He was champion and 29 years old. Please shut the fuck up.
And had just knocked out Machida. So come on.
Please stop talking forever.
Yeah.
What I would say though is BC. Then you look at Shogun's 2005, and the reason why that's a little bit different is he's got the Hiromitsu Kanehara fight, which I think doesn't count. I mean, it counts, but it's not like super amazing. However, he had 5 total wins that year, and then he had 2 on the same night with Overeem and Ricardo Irona. Of course, he had previously beaten Little Nog, and then he had also previously beaten Rampage, and he had stopped Rampage via soccer kicks. He stopped Arona via hammer fist, and then he knocked out Overeem, and he did those last 2 in the same fucking night. Like, that is, that's a tough thing to beat. So I don't know if Merab is going to beat that. What I can say is, BC, if he finishes Yan, it's absolutely in conversation with that. So that's the first thing that he's talking about. Certainly he'd win Fighter of the Year, BC. He might already have it locked up. Now, if he loses, that would make it a little bit harder to give it to him, but certainly he's, at this point, locked it up, and that would solidify it. If he's not already, BC, let's assume for the sake of argument that it's still a little wishy-washy about who is the greatest bantamweight of all time. The argument officially ends at UFC 323 if Merab gets his hand raised. You cannot even make an argument for Cruz anymore at that point. It would not exist. The quality of opposition, the length of that run, and again, if he gets a stoppage on top of it, it's over. It's over, and that's the guy. So BC, just consider for a second what he is doing here with this win. You're talking about him being a pretty big favorite in the odds, and I understand that. He's already beaten this guy. Granted, there's some dispute about how injured each of them were, but the stakes of this one are actually huge because he's right at this precipice of a number of important MMA, not official awards, but the kinds of things that we remember and count. And this one win kind of pushes him over the edge on a bunch of different fronts. It's a huge, huge fight for the legacy of Merab Dvalishvili.
Very much so. Can we include the 2016 from Amanda Nunes in this conversation, where she won a decision over Valentina Shevchenko, submitted Miesha Tate to win the championship, and knocked out a returning Ronda Rousey?
I mean, that's a pretty great year. But, dude, if you beat Umar, stop O'Malley, you decision Corey, but you nearly stopped him, and let's just say you stop Yan, dude, I mean, you're talking, let's see, Yan, former champion, O'Malley, former champion, Corey, obviously title contender, Umar, title contender. I mean, dude, you're dealing with some fucking hammers at 135, and he's treating them like, they're coming up from the Contender Series. It's insane.
That is true. I'd also like to offer Poetan's 2024 with 3 knockout title defenses in 175 days, saving multiple
That's
cards
amazing
while
as well.
injured.
Yes.
And other people don't give him the love. In fact, people voted for Jorge Masvidal for Fighter of the Year in 2019. But never forget what Israel Adesanya did that year, beating Anderson Silva, beating Kelvin Gastelum in an absolute war, and then knocking out Robert Whittaker to win the middleweight championship. Okay, never forget that, please. All right.
A very good year, indeed.
Yeah, as good as it gets right there. Let's continue down. Alexandre Pantoja, the flyweight champion, will have a very tough and interesting title defense on this same UFC 323 card in the co-main event against 24-year-old Josh Van, fresh off an absolute war with Brandon Royval to catapult himself to the top of this division. Is this Pantoja's toughest fight in years, Luke, as he enters from DraftKings as a -245 favorite?
This is, to me, maybe the most interesting fight on the card, if I can be honest with you, because I feel like Josh Van is green, but it was kind of what Aiemann Zahabi was talking about, BC, which is if the champion stays busy and you can get a couple of wins under your belt, you can get more. And then obviously Josh Van, this is going to be his 4th fight this year too, by the way. So you got Merab 4 fights, and Josh Van, this will be his 4th fight. You can build momentum sometimes pretty quickly. It's hard for a lot of these guys to get out of like first gear, but sometimes they can make a push, and this is one of those guys. I feel like, dude, Van we've said it a million times, and it's never come true. Oh, Pantoja has been in all these wars. Now is going to be the time where the bill comes due, and then it just really never comes due. You would imagine at some point it will. Van has a ton of volume that he throws. He's highly accurate, but at the same time, BC, and he can scramble his ass off too, but he throws a lot of volume and he doesn't have a ton of pop on it. That could slow him down, as well as, however good he is on the ground, he's not better than Pantoja. I can just tell you that matter of factly, he's not. So, there's a lot of reasons to be like, the guy's green. He's been kind of rushed up here. It's a relatively weak division. But at the same time, he's got hands, he's got combos, he's got volume, he's got moxie, he's got momentum. And the champion, while extremely decorated, looking for his 5th title defense, has been through the ringer. At some point, that will come to a close. Whether or not it's going to be a UFC 323, I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, we will. This card, dude, is that Dana said he wanted to load up this card and make it magic. Let's look at the complete fight card graphic here. You've got Jan Blachowicz against Guskov in what could be a war. Luke, I absolutely love this next fight. 38-year-old Henry Cejudo, despite a 3-fight losing streak against elite competition, says it will be the final fight of his career when he welcomes 27-year-old prospect and maybe the future of this division, if he can put it all together, Peyton Talbot. You've also got Brandon Moreno there against Tatsuro Taira. Who's that last fight there, Luke?
Fariz Ziam and Nazim Sadikov.
Oh, Ziam is the guy that killed Frivola. Okay. Luke Thomas, let's stay with Cejudo here. I love that he's willing to do this. I love these type of crossroads fights. I think Cejudo does not have enough left to beat the elites, and we found that out. We saw the limitations there. But this is kind of an interesting matchup that matters in a weird way, right?
How so?
It'll really
yes. I mean, well, yeah, I guess it does. I mean, it's hard to know exactly what they're going to do with Talbot. I think they're still trying to figure out what they have, but it looks to me like, BC, and this is just my opinion, you may agree or disagree, looks to me like they're cashing Henry out. They know Henry's got this fight left, and maybe that's it. And if he can get a win, maybe he'll try and, shoehorn in a title shot, or, who knows. He'll try to make one last final push. But if he loses, for sure, I think he's done. And they're trying to see, all right, is Talbot, who did not look good, obviously, he looked good in his last one against Felipe Lima, but then the fight prior to that against Raoni Barcelos, he looked terrible with the wrestling. Yeah. So the question is, like, how much has he really improved? A young guy, he should be able to improve pretty substantially. Dude, the guy, Talbot, had a big New York Times whole profile feature on him. He casts a net into a different part of sports or cultural fandom that most fighters can't touch. And so I think the UFC might be trying to see if they've got something with it, but they want to know if he's got the goods. This kind of tells us, at least, gets us pretty far to giving us a good answer to that.
This is great. It's great on every level. It would allow Cejudo to go out with a big win over, in a fight that kind of matters to figure out the future of this division. And there are a lot of people I've seen that are straight up picking Henry Cejudo with that wrestling against Talbot. So we'll have to see that. I love the banger potential, of course, there with Moreno and Tatsuro Taira as well. Luke, we've got some sound here of Merab Dvalishvili's coach responding to what Petr Yan said, that he was injured the first time they fought, and that we'll see a much different rematch here in the 323 main event.
What is your response to Jan believing that this thing's going to go differently and him sort of saying that health was the reason why he lost that first fight against Merab?
Whatever makes you sleep better at night, I'm good with that. Whatever they have to say that gets them through the night to feel better about a loss. Maybe it was. I'm sure he was injured. We were injured too. Literally, Merab's hand could not be fit into a glove. It was the size of a baseball. It was that big, completely broken in 2 different places. He had surgery directly after. He never heard a peep about it. We never spoke about it until this came out, until Jan decided to say that, he's 50%. Well, guess what? We only had one hand too. So I don't think, and now you're giving motivation to a guy that okay, he was hurt, and that's great. I respect Jan and his team, and I think he's a great fighter. And like I said, I enjoy watching him. I'm a fan of his fights, but do I think it's going to go any different? Absolutely not. Do I think that Merab comes out with the title? Yes. And I think that it might be a much more emphatic win, much more dominant win, because now you have a even more motivated Merab. But again, whatever anybody wants to say, man, that's up to them. And whatever, I'm not a big fan of, I was hurt before this fight, or everybody's hurt. Don't take the fight. Don't take the fight. If you're going to lose and you're going to cry about it, or you're going to, come out and say eventually, well, this is why. It might be. It really might have been why. But that's on you, man. You chose to do that. So whatever makes people feel like they sleep better, whatever it is, all good.
I think that's a fair statement there from John Wood. That's on Submission Radio. Shout out to Dennis Skrotikov over there.
Yeah.
Our guy.
Touch my scrotum off.
Yeah, thank you very much there. Luke, do you think it'll be a better fight than the first one and more competitive? Although what he's saying about Merab's hand being a balloon and broken, dude, Merab just doesn't care about illnesses or injuries in a Poetan-like way, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think at least early it'll be better. Yeah, I mean, I believe that Jan probably was not in a great health. I think he learned from that fight. I think that he'll have a better strategy and it will do some good for him. But my rule is, A, he already beat him. And B, to your point, Merab was also probably super fucked up. And even more to the point, I'm not picking against Merab until I literally see someone take the belt from him. And then we can discuss what his real limits are. But until then, they don't exist. And for a fight that, Merab has already won, there are some complications that can happen. You can get a little overconfident. But dude, Merab is streaking for a reason. He looks better every time. And BC, here's something that's also possible. Jan might look better for a round, even 2, and then still get finished in round 3 or 4. Like that's possible true. As well. So, I look forward to seeing it. And the last thing I'll say on this, I do think it's good for guys who want to be weight class legends. You need to see some of the better contemporaries a couple of times. St. Pierre had to fight Chael Sonnen twice. George St. Pierre had to fight.
Whoa. Did you just say St. Pierre had to fight Chael Sonnen twice? Didn't you?
What I'm saying, Anderson Silva had to fight Sonnen twice. Excuse me. St. Pierre had to fight Koscheck a couple times. Yeah. And there was more rematches than that during the course of their tenures. For example, DJ had to fight John Dodson a couple of times. The guys who can really do something else and make some noise in your division, really good champs are going to see them a couple of times. And in fights you don't necessarily want or prefer, or, you have a different idea about what they should be doing. It's actually a big part of their legendary run if they can get the win. And this would be a huge, as we've discussed, a massive fight in terms of the reward that is waiting for Merab with a win.
Yeah, I think Petr Yan had a groin injury or something that slowed him down. Yeah. So we'll see in the rematch. By the way, I did chat with one Umar Nurmagomedov yesterday, who returns next week at 321. Snap. Check out that interview on the BCX, I believe, later today. Lots of talk about what he could potentially do in a rematch with Merab if he gets by Mario Bautista. So bantamweight at the top end, heating up in a big way. And to close, not everybody's buying the Joshua Van hype here. One of those people are Pantoja. Here's him with the Overdogs pod.
Everybody think Joshua Van is a God and can destroy everyone, okay, bring me in.
So have you been watching a little bit on Joshua Van?
I watched Joshua Van very before, you know. In that moment, I think, okay, I don't need to take too much attention in this guy right now because he's like a top 15, something like that. He beat Royval with a very nice fight, you know, and that's so good because I have 15 minutes to watch that fight. I see Royval make a lot of mistakes, and Josh Van take advantage about that, you know. Josh Van deserve fight for the belt, completely fired. He has so much good skills to take down defense. He have very good boxing movements, you know. I like this style. I like to put myself in this position, you know.
LT, this 323 card also includes Marvin Vettori versus Bruno Ferreira, Macy Barber versus Corine Silva. I like that fight. Terrence McKinney versus Chris Duncan. This card is very good. How about that 322 card at MSG, by the way? That thing is loaded from top to bottom. So a good close to the UFC's run with ESPN, maybe outside of some of those fight night snoozers. And we expect a huge launch to the Paramount era, probably with Topuria in the first fight in January. So in the first main event in January on the PLE side. So we'll see where that goes right there. Let's go over to topic number 4. This was big news on Wednesday. The California State Athletic Commission unanimously recommending the passage of the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act to a very controversial response. Mostly because there were 0 professional boxers present on this sort of Zoom conference call, but there was a lot of MMA fighters, alumni, representatives, Big John McCarthy. You also had Nick Khan representing Zuffa Boxing. Luke, what was the purpose in your eyes of this recommendation from Andy Foster and the California State Athletic Commission? And if anything, what did this hearing disclose or prove, since this needs to be put before Congress to fully get approved?
Yeah, I saw people reporting strangely that like this had some kind of binding power. It does not. It is merely the 6 commissioners of the California State Athletic Commission essentially recommending or, you know, saying what they think is important here. Like, we recommend this piece of legislation as good for, you know, the industry. You can read their own statements about it. What's the purpose of this? So the purpose of this event was to manufacture consent. It was a state commission, one of the most important ones, certainly by volume. California deals with, historically speaking anyway, the most amount of like boxing and MMA events happen typically in California versus any other state. I mean, that's changed to a degree during the pandemic, but that has historically been true. So it's one of the most important, if not the most important, commissions in the United States, essentially lending the credibility that that body has as an entity to recommend a piece of legislation on behalf of this, you know, sort of monopolistic behemoth in TKO. That, and you're asking like, well, why would they want to do that? Well, we can read their statements if you know, if that feels enlightening to any of you out there, but it's really not very complicated in my judgment. It is quite obviously this piece of legislation. I mean, nobody would look around at the state of boxing, BC, and say it's in great shape. But, you know, and then the proponents of the American Boxing Revival Act, this Ali Act amendment, essentially, what they would argue is, you know, hey, look, we're putting in, you know, minimums on round pay and other forms of medical coverage, but it's like, you don't need the Ali Act changes to do that. You can just pass laws, or the commission by itself could take that up. So it's really got nothing to do with that. More, it's so that, you know, why would the commission support legislation that provides a carve out to the existing regulations that were put in place to protect boxers? And the answer is, well, again, you can read what they write. I'm going to give you what my opinion is, which is that I think that they are reading the tea leaves and they're looking at the way things are going and they're making a bet. And the bet is TKO is going to get their way one way or the other. And they already control MMA. They have a significant stake and control in WWE. Boxing is there for the taking. And again, of course, this legislation is designed to aid their boxing promotion. They're making a bet that they're going to win. And if you think about it logically, BC, I don't know what the number of boxing events annually, of how it's changed or not, but certainly we have some evidence from Tapology that MMA events are in steady decline. In a world where, especially in the United States, in a world where that is happening and there's concentration around one dominant brand, that doesn't just have a monopoly in one sport, but that conceivably has a monopoly in two, or certainly a dominant brand in one and a monopoly in another, and then obviously has potentially free reign with this legislation being passed, they're making a bet that if they get sideways with them in a world where the amount of events are already contracting, that they won't be able to get those events in their state, which could deprive it of important revenue. The way that these commissions work is some of it is just funded by the taxpayers, but a big component of it is, they tax events that come to the state for licensing fees and, you name it. And that's a way in which they collect revenue. It used to be in a world, BC, where like there were so many different promoters between MMA and boxing, even within MMA itself. If UFC didn't go, Strikeforce would, you know what I mean? And they would have shows on CBS, but that doesn't exist anymore. Everything is much more concentrated. If you get sideways with that promoter, I think that they're thinking this would be ruinous for us. This would be ruinous for the industry and the state, and this would be ruinous for our potential careers in the regulatory world thereafter. So they're making a bet that if they go along with it, that they'll preserve their interests long term. I don't know that for a fact. That's simply my opinion, but I don't know how else you can reconcile what their job is versus how they're behaving here, and then come to any other conclusion than they're folding. So maybe you have a different view, but that's mine.
No, I mean, that's the way I see it. It feels sort of inevitable. Are there potential setbacks here for the average boxer in comparison to the way the Ali Act stands now? Yeah, we've documented those, ad nauseum here, but it also on the flip side is hard to defend where the sport's at now with the abuses of the sanctioning bodies. It's interesting right here. And it's definitely a controversial topic overall, which is why you've seen an aggressive response from Oscar De La Hoya on Clapback Thursday this week, a humorous one.
It was so weird though, right? Because I mean, this is the funny part. Like, to your point, BC, there was one amateur boxer who called. There were no pro boxers who called.
Yeah, that's a bad look to not have that. No pro.
Yeah, and dude, it was like De La Hoya, like, instead of making Clapback Thursday, you could have just called,
I'm with you on that. So there were a lot of people for it on the call, from Forrest Griffin to John McCarthy to a few others. One of those, of course, was Nick Khan. Nick Khan issued a statement through TKO afterwards. He's obviously the president of WWE and will be in charge of Zuffa Boxing along with Dana White. He says, on behalf of Zuffa, we want to thank California Athletic Commission for the thoughtful consideration of all voices being presented in today's hearing and for the unanimous 6-0 vote support for the new act. This bill does not eliminate or change any of the existing provisions of the original Ali Act. What we are proposing is an alternative system in which fighters will have more choices and opportunities, better pay, greater health and safety protections, and more events in which to compete. Also, as the commission is fully aware, the Ali Act is supported by Lonnie Ali, the wife of the greatest Muhammad Ali. We know Lonnie personally and can share with you what she said to us is, quote, "This is a great opportunity for boxers, and this is what Muhammad would have wanted." Now, Luke, this is similar to what Dana White told me when I interviewed him on CBS Sports HQ when the announcement happened of Zuffa Boxing coming to Paramount CBS, of course, my parent company. And I get it. They're not necessarily changing it. They're creating a new system, and you can ultimately pick to go the Zuffa route where there seems to be a UFC level of monopolistic control, but also some pluses built in, or you can stay in the traditional one. We'll see, I guess, how long that traditional structure lasts, because I think we feel inevitably that Zuffa Boxing and Turki Al-Sheikh will combine down the road. So these are potential major changes that could limit certain fighters, I guess, leverage and earning potential, but can certainly increase the earning potential for fighters in the beginning. So you can understand the pushback. Here's a list of those that were on the call that spoke at this event. Nick Khan, Big John McCarthy, Chris Lieben representing as a current official, an ex-UFC fighter. There were doctors, professors, but a UFC doctor, a couple boxing promoters, Corey Rapaz there and Tom Loeffler, all the way through podcasters, members of the MMA FA, and a lot of current and former UFC fighters. But Luke, although Matt Brown, a former UFC fighter, was very vocal against it and made a lot of noise and essentially straight up accusing them of sort of trying to fool the boxers, you had a lot of MMA fighters on there, or MMA-centric people who were in support of it, which is kind of surprising. And I think that's where the controversy out of this came from. the idea of why are you having MMA fighters on there and not active boxers who this will affect.
I don't know. I can't speak for the boxers. I don't really know. I mean, I kind of said this earlier, like with this is what I was pointing to earlier, Bruce. Like I mean, okay, so like look who the opposition was. It's largely, without exclusively, the MMA folks who have been engaged in like Ali Act extension efforts and or lawsuit efforts, right? Like that's who's there. Where is the coordinated inside of boxing resistance? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And for that reason, they're going to get run over. You know, MMA's folks, they can make a difference, I suppose. They can, they can try and slow things down, but dude, the boxing is just, they're not putting up any fight. They're just, dude, this is, we got to say something about this. Like the culture of boxing. Hold on a second. Let me like organize my thoughts here for a second. The culture of boxing, BC, how many years went by as a boxing fan and observer? And you can speak to this much better than I can, but everybody has felt it. Everybody's felt it. Where year after year, you were just like, all the fights that I want to get made don't get made. And there's exceptions to that. There's good years, bad years, but there's been so many years where like things didn't happen. But the funny thing was, BC, during that time, boxing, at least visibly, still looked to be the same to us that it maybe not always did, but still looked pretty similar. But what it ended up doing, BC, was setting in motion a culture of rot, and it set in motion a culture of passivity. And now that they need to marshal forces to protect their interests, there's nothing to do it with. Like it's been completely hollowed out, and the boxers seem unaware. The promoters would rather make clapback videos than, do anything about it. I just feel like boxing, whether you think the TKO sponsor legislation is the appropriate remedy or not, the reality is this sport has fallen into extraordinary disrepair. And what's so funny to me, BC, is, you kind of see it year over year, as I mentioned, but not really. But then it's nothing at all, and then all at once. And here we are at the all at once moment.
Yep. I mean, it's hard to defend. I mean, do I love this for the fighters? Do I think this is the right new model to go? Personally, not necessarily, but they are, at least in theory, giving the fighters the choice of staying with the old model or going with the new. But the old model also sucks. The old model was absolutely dominated by corruption of the sanctioning bodies. Why is it that some promoters have their fighters always ranked in one sanctioning body, but aren't ranked at all in another? Like, we can see through the ridiculousness and the corruption that has segregated the sport. If this at least succeeds in bringing it together, I guess it's a plus. But on the flip side of this argument of whether this was a setup or bring on people that already support it to support it, if boxing's not going to, it's the same argument we have against the MMA fighters. If they're not going to stand up and organize and fight for better pay or treatment, and also the boxers aren't going to do the same, then what are we going to do here?
You're going to get what you're going to get.
That's what it is right there.
There it is.
All right, we close with topic number 5, another sort of controversial development. You remember former UFC champion Frankie Edgar was expected to return on the October 4th BKFC big-time event in Newark, New Jersey, which, of course, was main evented by Mike Perry versus Jeremy Stevens. Frankie Edgar was scheduled to be in the co-main event against Jimmy Rivera. Did we all want Frankie Edgar to come back? Not necessarily, of course, right? Or maybe almost unanimously no, because of the amount of TKO stoppage defeats to the tail end of his great UFC career. But he was signed on to this fight in August. And according to Frankie Edgar, he went through a litany of tests with 9 different doctors testing every single part of his brain, heart, everything, and passed with flying colors. So why was it that in October, right before the event at the last minute, Frankie Edgar was pulled from the card? And he would go on to explain on his podcast that it were some shenanigans around that. He was told that he's pulled from the card because a doctor that represents the BKFC that did not look at him ruled that he was too old and had too many losses, even though they knew this information in August when they signed him. And it's really it's brewed speculation that there's 2 potential, I guess, conspiracy theories here. One, that this event did not sell to the level that they thought, so BKFC chose to cut its cut Frankie Edgar loose and not have to pay him the full amount to save money. or more nefariously, that they potentially led him on all along to use his name to sell tickets, knowing they would pull the fast one here. Edgar ultimately accusing David Feldman of BKFC of having his reps tell Frankie Edgar that Feldman was flying to Manchester for an event for a week and he would have no phone on him, so you couldn't contact him. This is suddenly heating up in a big way. So, Luke Thomas, what really happened here? Because I think all the available scenarios are pretty bad for BKFC, unless you're going to believe that they listen to people like us saying we don't want to see Frankie fight again for his own well-being, and maybe they decided, hey, let's not take a chance. But why would they do it just a week out before the event when they knew about this for 4 or 5 months? They knew exactly who he was.
I mean, I can't say without access to more conclusive information what exactly happened. We don't have discovery over emails or texts or anything like that. What I will say is kind of interesting. I know we have a Frankie Edgar graphic, if we can put that up on the screen here. Quote, I passed every single one of my medicals. I did a whole shit ton of medicals. I thought BKFC had something. I was like, wow, this is pretty entertaining. They got something, but not if they treat fighters like this. Because I'll tell you what, fighters out there, beware. How often do you ever hear fighters talk like this about a promotion, any promotion that's major? I mean, it's not unheard of, but it's not an everyday thing. But more to the point, you know, Frankie Edgar was never really embroiled in any kind of controversy like this at any point in his MMA career ever. Not with UFC, not, you know, obviously he finished his career with UFC, but you know, you just never heard of something like this. He's been a professional in every way. So for him to say this, again, everyone's going to be allowed to make their own conclusions. Highly unusual for him to say it. Highly unusual for him to say it. More to the point, you know, listen, we have said nice things about BKFC based on some of the market reception. That big show they had in Philly, right, BC, that had Eddie Alvarez on the card. I think it was Eddie. Was it Eddie and Mike Perry?
It might have been, yep.
Or
maybe it was Eddie and Jeremy Stevens.
You know?
It was Eddie and Jeremy Stevens.
Jeremy Stevens, yes. Good call there, Long Island. You know, that looked like a pretty big success, and they had other shows that have looked like pretty big successes, and we've said, you know, they're providing a real alternative to MMA. It's MMA adjacent. It's got some elements of it. It's called boxing, but it's really, you know, it's more related to the MMA world than it is to the boxing world, and still, it's a meaningful alternative. But, you know, there's just been a number of incidents where obviously they had a guy die, essentially from injuries related to a show that they had hosted. You know, they have this incident. They had hired a guy who was like an insane racist and posted all kinds of like, you know, like, I mean, not like, you know, oh, he said off-color jokes, like was like members of, you know, or I think affiliated anyway with some racist organizations. In any event, you know, this is the kind of part of the fight game where it just feels like you have to be extra careful because it's dealing with the kind of athlete at a stage of their career where they can in certain ways be more vulnerable. And, you know, again, I don't know if they were cutting corners, trying to put them on a thing to sell tickets and then pull them off because they didn't want to pay them when it didn't, you know, yield bigger numbers. I don't know if that's what they did. But if Frankie Edgar is offering caution, fighters out there would be unwise to not heed it. You're just dealing with, dude, it's so weird to me. Why does this is true for any promoter. Why does anyone trust any combat sports promoter? Like, I'm not saying you have to, in every case, always distrust them, but what is it about what they do and what is it about this industry that makes anybody think they can default a certain level of trust to them? You cannot. You cannot. This is not how this business works. This is not polite society. These are people that, you know, I'm not saying that anybody broke any laws. I don't know that they did, but these are not people, again, I'm speaking industry-wide here, that are entitled to a degree of trust because they've acted in high trust ways. You have to have your head on a swivel in this industry, and when things like this begin to add up, it's important to take inventory.
Well, Frankie on his Champ and the Tramp podcast sort of felt like he was forced to open up about it. A couple interesting things he said. One, that he actually had no interest in fighting again, that they kind of called him and pushed him and then essentially gave him an offer of a fight purse that he couldn't refuse. And then two, despite him going to great lengths to clear himself medically, he claims that his medicals were never sent by the promotion to the New Jersey State Athletic Commission, and that he's been doing his medicals through New Jersey his entire MMA fighting career. So that's interesting. And the fact that a doctor who didn't even look at him would just suddenly say, you know what, it's too dangerous for this guy to fight after they've sold a certain amount of tickets. That's where it looks pretty sketchy. Ultimately, we do have a response here from Dave Feldman, who caught up with MMA Fighting's what's the guy's name?
Damon Martin.
Damon Martin, excuse me. Let's listen in.
Do you plan on trying to bring Frankie in, or are we just going to move on?
I don't know if he even wants to fight with us again. I think he's a little upset with us, as maybe he should be. But at the end of the day, we were looking out for his best interest. He is getting, a very, very respectable check. So I don't think he's mad at us for that. I think he's mad at us because we took away an opportunity from him. Again, sometimes you have to save fighters from themselves. And I'm not saying that we saved Frankie from himself, but I'm saying for that night, our medical team wasn't prepared for that. And that's why. Will we revisit it? We'll certainly talk to him. If he's interested, we will definitely dive deep. And if we can make it happen, we will.
And you said, he's still getting a paycheck out of this. He's still got money out of this.
Yeah, no, definitely. Listen, he promoted it. He went to every appearance I asked him to go to. He did any interview I asked him to go to. He did a watch party at his dad's bar, uncle's bar, or something like that. He really went above and beyond to try to help us. So, of course, he had to get taken care of. A lot of talk right now and a lot of things flying around about CTE right now and actually coming after commissions and coming after promoters for it. That definitely had something to do with our decision. That certainly had something to do with our decision. And when we do anything, we're going to weigh risk and reward. What's the risk? What's the reward? And the reward on this one, we didn't think outweighed the risk. So that's why we did that.
I don't how did you not know that before, brother? I mean,
that's the thing that's sketchy about this.
How did you not know that?
Frankie would say on his podcast that they paid him a smaller amount, but a firm amount now to just thank him for promoting it. But he straight up said they probably paid me that much so I wouldn't sue them.
Yeah, he literally said it. Yeah, and he says he's not as long as they pay him.
And I mean, MMA Joey had a 40-minute video about this and accusing the MMA media of covering up, accusing Ariel of covering it up. But I don't know. It does seem sketchy. I think the biggest point I took from MMA Joey's video was say what the issue was. Say what the medical issue was, right? Wouldn't that have given them an alibi in this regard? But yet,
how can there be a medical issue if New Jersey cleared him? I understand that the BKFC doctor could still intervene. That's a series of them, but it's how do you sign a guy for a fight and make him kind of a centerpiece of the card, or at least a big part of it anyway, who's got this history and you've not done any medical examination about his situation first? It just, I mean, even if there isn't a nefarious explanation, right? Even if it is, oh, they didn't rug pull him, the best explanation after that is you're just horribly incompetent.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
at the same time, we didn't want to see him get knocked out by Jimmy Rivera. So
yeah, the other part is also don't book guys like that. You know what I mean? It's just the whole thing is just I'll be nice, unfortunate.
Yeah, there we go. Let's put that to bed. All right, can we move on here?
Yes.
Those are our 5 topics for this Friday. We now offer you, as always, the opportunity to reach out and touch our show through the portal of morningkombat@gmail.com, our email address. Tell Mikey that you said hi by showing him anything but your private parts. Thank you. This is to fuel, of course, our Friday fan segments, Dead Wrong and Fan Subs. We begin by putting ourselves on trial, ombudsman style. You thought we said something wrong? You brought a receipt. We'll tell you at the end of the day whether we was actually dead wrong.
Dead wrong.
All righty, let's see who takes more L's today. This one's from Nick. He says, during the October 10th episode, around the 10-minute mark, my fears were confirmed that BC has taken a shovel to the head and suffered severe brain damage when he said Charles Oliveira was KO'd for the first time in his career against Ilia Topuria. Charles was KO'd by Cub Swanson and TKO'd by both Paul Felder and Donald Cerrone. Luke, please save a syringe for BC when you visit his house to euthanize his pets. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Okay.
I mean, I gotta say that's a little aggressive, but I saw that cat today. It's on my mind.
So I was dead wrong on that. I don't know why I thought I was dead. I was thinking.
Isn't it the first time he's been put out completely cold with a single punch? Isn't that what it is?
It is, but I guess I was thinking of Max getting stopped for the first time in the fight before against Topuria, and I confused it in my, challenged brain. There's a fear around this household these days, Luke, that my short-term memory is like scarily gone. You know what I mean? But
my memory recall, except for things that I learned my sophomore year in college, has all but dissolved. Yes.
I always tell my family, I'm like, don't worry. In 5 years, I'll be able to tell you it all back. Like, I've got one of those memories that it needs years to, then it just sticks. And then I can recall conversations from 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's CTE, Luke. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? By the way, Long Island Luke would let us know that everyone has made weight for UFC Vancouver, except for Bruno Silva, who has yet to take the scale. And of course, the main eventers both came in at 186 pounds, RDR and Brendan Allen. Number 2 dead wrong from Leo. And of course, I'll take the L in that first one here. For Friday's dead wrongs, let's look back to Monday's show when BC stated, quote, Holloway has won 4 of his last 5. The only loss being the Topuria knockout. The only time he was ever stopped. God, I'm getting hammered here. That's dead wrong.
He got stopped by Poirier.
Yeah, I guess you're damn right. I meant stop by strikes. I did. I really meant that, but you're right. I didn't clarify that. So Holloway was also stopped in 2012 by Dustin Poirier in their first fight via armbar. Maybe less hot dogs and more reading, or even trying out a few movies with subtitles. Much love, Leo. Wow.
I do like movies with subtitles. I am that guy.
I got to take 2 back-to-back L's there, but I did mean the correct info on the second one. Whatever. Here's Devin, the third one here. Greetings from Canada, boys. I'm sending in a quick dead wrong for Luke from Monday. Shit. 1 hour and 18 minutes. Luke and BC are talking about Boots Ennis. Luke says, quote, we are now 35 years into his career and talks about his best wins. Maybe this was just an exaggeration, fights. But didn't seem like one. We can't be 35 years into a career because he's only 28. If it was an exaggeration for effect, forgive me. Have a good one, boys. No. I did hear that.
I'll take that L, but I meant he's got 35. He's 35-0. So that's
yeah. Thank you. So those are your L's for the week. We take them. Our final segment is your opportunity to send in pictures and videos of you on vacation with Saul's wife. This one's called Fan Submissions.
You've got mail.
Viewers.
Speaking of the great Saul A from Louisville, Kentucky, he says, the wife and I took our yearly vacation. This year, she chose Aruba. The weather was great, got to feed a flamingo, but Monday morning at 11, my wife said, we're on vacation, get off your phone. I said, damn right, I'm on vacation. I do what I want. Y'all know what I was watching poolside? We both got ripped off free alcohol and spent the first night hugging toilets. Great times, all the while wearing the best merch in the game. LIL, please keep these pictures rolling. LT, I follow Saul on Instagram. He essentially live streamed his entire vacation, and he was wearing MK clothing the whole time, and he's not wrong. They were asleep with their face on the toilet after that first night of drinking. It was wild.
First of all, I'm happy that they had a great time, but I would not want to put that kind of information out into the world. No.
Hey, Saul lives under his own set of rules. All right. You know, you got to respect that. He's like, lady, I do what I want on vacation. All right.
I'm surprised you're not out there vacationing with them, banging his girl. That is
okay. First of all, that's way important too far. That is way too far, right? I would never go on vacation with them, but the offer though is very polite of you. You know what I mean? That's
What's that movie with Demi Moore?
Indecent Proposal.
Indecent Proposal. That's the one. That was a big movie when we were kids.
That was very big. That question was being asked by a lot of couples around that time. Yeah, would you take money? Was that Robert Redford who offered the money?
I think that's right. I think it was Robert Redford and Demi Moore, right? I think that's
who offered Woody Harrelson's character like a large sum of money to sleep with his wife. Yes.
Yeah, to bang his chick. Yeah.
Very, very indecent there. But seriously, shout out to Saul and everyone over there in Louisville. Big fans. Thank you for wearing our merch and loving our show. Let's go over to Alan. He says, I was wondering if Luke would ever interview the Insane Clown Posse. I feel like they would bond over a lot, and it would be a great conversation. Keep donking, Donks. Wow.
Hold on. Don't say anything. Can I name? Yes, I think I can name them. I don't know which one is which.
Yeah.
But I think they're Violent J and Shaggy 2 Dope. Is that right?
Wow. I think that's correct. I think that's correct.
I'm not sure. You know what's kind of funny is obviously their music is, magnets. How do they work? That's not really for me. But I've heard this is gonna sound kind of weird, but okay, no. The people I follow on Instagram certain rappers who have performed there, like for example, RA the Rugged Man, for example. I do like RA. He raves about the Juggalos. He raves about the gathering of the Juggalos. He loves them. So you know what? I don't, they're kind of an easy thing to mock, but if RA likes them, I'll holster my insults. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I would try some Fago, Luke, for sure. Right? Would you on a Cuervo episode pour beautifully tasting Cuervo tequila inside the chaser of Fago red soda, ICP style?
Sure. Bring some.
Okay. I don't know if we can get some in New York, but I'll be looking to do that next Wednesday for sure. Our next fan submission comes from Jonas. He says, new Have You Seen This Shit intro with Luke screaming bitches like an OG unk. Sorry.
Bitches! Woo! It's on me!
I don't quite get I look like I am a lumberjack hitting a vape next to the Twin Towers.
Could you play that one more time? Imagine if this was, and now we throw to this week's Have You Seen This Shit?
Bitches! Woo! It's on me!
That is, I don't do it next to the Twin Towers, BC, but I might wake and bake a little bit like that. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Long Island Luke, would it be disrespectful for that to be our new HYSTS intro?
It wouldn't be disrespect. It would be disrespectful to the original guy who made that intro, because that intro is classic. I just gotta say. But Jonas, credit to you. That was fucking hilarious.
All right. I mean, we're honoring the victims, of course.
Are we?
Our final one comes from John, who has no comment. Let's see. Yes, that is true. I have Poetan my own liver through the days. By the way, I haven't had a hot dog in at least like 4 years, and that's the longest stretch. Luke,
no, you haven't had any sausage of any kind.
Well, are you talking about food or what?
I'm saying, okay, well, that's another kind. You haven't had like gumbo or?
No, I have had sausage, but I haven't had an actual hot dog since my diagnosis.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that's right on. And I don't know about the pasty part, but that's right on. Yeah.
Brother, you are, I mean, of all the things you've ever been wrong on, that might be the worst.
Look, I know there's people out there that agree with me. I know there is. I know it.
We got one final video from him.
Had the shit of a lifetime, and I was like, oh my fucking God, where am I going to go? 19th and M, there's like, it's just businesses there. There's no like you're fucked, right? So I just saw Joseph A. Bank, and I was like, yo, I'm looking for a tuxedo, right? I got to give him some excuse. And like, but first, I need to go to your bathroom. And they're like, oh, you have to use the employee one in the bathroom. A triple flusher.
You're fired. Okay.
It's like you can just leave your key card at the front desk.
Yes. Wow. There it is. Those are your fan submissions of the week. morningkombat@gmail.com to reach out to the show. Thank you to all who still support this show 6+ years into it, by buying our merch, by telling your friends, by tuning in and liking and subscribing to what we do. It is much appreciated. Speaking of that, those are our social handles. Shout out to everybody on the DraftKings Network. Even shout out to you audio only fools. We see you as well. But please like and subscribe, spread the word, follow our extended universe here of YouTube channels and Substacks. LT, will the people be hearing from you this week on your channel?
I don't know if I'm doing a live watch along on Saturday. Probably not, but I'm definitely going to have coverage on Sunday.
All right. Well, now, will that be, in place of spending time with your family?
I don't know how you do both. So, but I'll give them my Saturday as best I can.
All right.
Because the Saturday after that one is UFC 321, and I am going to tell my family to hit the fucking road.
Yeah,
for that one.
that's Long Island Luke style. Tell the lady you're on your own tonight. You know what I mean?
Thought we were going to have a normal human relationship and interaction? Hit the bricks.
She's on vacation this weekend, so for once
From
I actually, no, not from me. No, I do have the full card fully ready to go. So I'll be there Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Also, LT versus Danny Segura coming up in a half hour.
Let's go.
Quite the performance, yes.
Let's go. Let's see who's going to end up playing me for the championship. That's what I want to know there.
I'll say this, BC. Here's my hint. Brush up on your Spanish. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, my God. Stop that. Also, folks, this episode of Morning Kombat was brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. And one final reminder on our merch. While it's still available, your October exclusives, head on over to morningkombat.shop. Get your autographed Frank and Luke and Donkula poster. Also, you can get our special October-only exclusive T-shirts. Mix and match your colors. You can be a super wash dad just like us. We have evergreen items. All of the proceeds go directly to BC, LT, and Long Island Luke. Thank you for your patronage and your support. Thank you for Average Joe Art for his many designs as well. Thank you for being yourself. Okay. We appreciate you all so much. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Vancouver, and also you boxing fans, check me out Saturday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. The pay-per-view airs live on millions.co. It is farewell time. Danny Swift Garcia versus Danny Gonzalez. The final walk for maybe the future Hall of Famer, the two-division champion, DSG, inside the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Me and Chris Algieri on the call. We're going to get some Berto. We're going to get some Teo. We're going to get some Ox sprinkled in as well, so check it out. LT, anything to tell the fine people on the way out?
Thank you all so much for watching. We really appreciate you. And as far as MK is concerned, we'll be back on Monday.
We will. We'll be back remotely on Monday, and we'll be back next Wednesday, UFC 321 pregame preview. That's the Abu Dhabi card. Chuck Mindenhall will join us, brought to you by Cuervo. Do not miss it. For LIL and LT, this is B Sizzle. Take care of yourselves today, folks, okay? Put your mental health first. We can get through anything together. Let's go. Have a great weekend. We out of here.